So back in the day, before I started making YouTube videos, I had made this dowel jig to make some of the projects that I'll show on the screen here now. And it worked out great, but there are some drawbacks. As you can see here, as I need to change the side that I need to drill through, everything doesn't line up correctly, so I actually have to flip this over and punch the bushings down through. And it's really kind of a pain in the neck. So my solution was to make dowel jig number 2. And I wanted to make this one a little bit different so that I could flip the jig over from side A to side B without having to undo anything. So I had an idea for that. And I got started by using a couple pieces of scrap oak that I was able to pick up for free from the lumber mill when I got all the parts for the railing. And I set up my jig to have the alignment pin 2 inches in from the end, and then 2 3/8 of an inch dowel bushings 2 inches apart from each other. You can see those lines I just drew there are what I'm going to hollow that out so that the rotating piece for the side walls of this jig can rotate freely all the way through to be able to pinch and align. Here you can see where I'm hollowing out that bit, and it took me a couple tries to find the exact depth that I needed, and I had to cut it a little bit wider than the kerf of the blade to allow for the metal that I'm going to use for these rotating pieces. Now, you can definitely use wood for this. I thought it would just look cool and probably have a little bit longer life if I use metal, and I had a few pieces of scrap laying around. Now I'm actually cutting the 2 side walls that are going to pinch that centerpiece in place, and I'm just using some birch 1/2 inch plywood for this, and having to hollow out the same bit for both pieces. And these are the metal pieces that are going to rotate. I'm using my calipers to find dead center. And then I obviously have to drill holes to allow the rotation. And I'm trying to drill both of them at the same time so that I can have, in theory, perfect holes on both of them. But they ended up being a little bit off, which doesn't really matter since you're going to be using the same jig for drilling both sides of the dowel holes. The misalignment that you might have is carried over to both ends, so it doesn't matter. Setting a hard stop up on the drill bit so that I can countersink the sidewall pieces in a little bit. Just the bolts I had were not quite long enough to reach all the way through. Probably would have been best if I countersunk both sides, like I had to do on the middle piece that holds the bushings. You have to do both sides of this so that it can sit flush on the board that you're going to dowel. And it has to be on both sides so that you can easily flip it over. Here I'm putting in the bushings, which are 1/2 inch OD and 3/8 inside diameter. Here I'm assembling the unit. Side walls are bolted through. And then the centerpiece that actually holds the bushings is bolted in place in the middle. And everything's tightened down. Here I'm marking side A and B, doesn't matter which one as long as you're always consistent. And then you can see I pinch it in place and drill side B. I like to use my Craig jig stop collar just so I have a hard stop instead of using tape. And then I flip over and do the same on the other board, which in this case is side B. And a test fit. And it looks beautiful. Well, dowel jig number 2 definitely came out a little bit nicer than my original jig, which I threw together when I was making that co-sleeper piece of furniture. This one is also much faster since I don't have to unbolt, pound the bushings through again, and bolt it back on again to do the joinery. With this one also, I won't forget which side I'm on like I did a couple times making that co-sleeper. Now, obviously you can have different sizes in here if you wanted to, and if you wanted to do more than the 2 holes that I have, you can set your jig, align it, drill your hole, and then index down multiple times to get a bunch of holes in a row if that's what you want it to do. I'm not going to have a set of plans for this on my website because not all jigs are going to be made like this depending on what size it is. So you'll get the general gist. I'll make sure I post a bunch of pictures on my Instagram and my Flickr account so you guys can see them. And I'll also have a write-up on the website, DIYtyler.com, just no plans, so you guys can copy this if you wanted to. Anyway, this will get a lot of use in my shop. I'm excited to have it done. I'm going to use it on the banister series, which is coming up in the next couple weeks, hopefully. And I need to use this jig to align the balusters. So anyway, that's what's coming up. If you're new to the channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. We put out a new video pretty much every week, ranging from jigs like this to miter sleds and decks. All sorts of things on this channel. So I'd love to have you subscribe so we can see you back again. I'm Tyler, I like to do it myself, and we will see you guys next time.